Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Bacon and Coffee. Got a great guest today. Mr. Mark S.A. Smith is back, and we're going to find out where he is in this lovely United States, along with a lot of other things. But first, we're going to start with our 30-second countdown. Here we go. And welcome, everybody, to Bacon and Coffee. And we're going to start us off with our porcelain and pork kickoff. Here we go. Boom goes the dynamite, my friend. How the heck are you?
Boom! I'm happy and healthy.
Excellent.
And
So where in the
yeah,
world are you?
Well, I'm back in Knoxville visiting Mama for a week or so. She's, our parents. We're at that age where our parents are in decline if they're still with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to spend as much time as I possibly can with her in this season of her life, trying to extract the wisdom and relive the memories. And it's hard. It's hard to see your parents in decline.
Mm-hmm.
Mama's substantially slower than she was 6 months ago, and so I'm pleased that my business permits me to spend time with her, and so that's what's going on here. And we've been out touring the Smoky Mountains. The colors are just starting.
Oh,
The
yeah.
colors are just beginning. So for those of you that can access the trees, get out there this weekend and go see the colors. It'll fill your heart full of joy and be the panacea to the problems that you're probably facing right now.
I love that. And today we're going to be talking about overwhelm. How entrepreneurs get kind of like they let their business basically overwhelm them and things of that nature. Is that correct? Is that where we're headed?
That's what we're going to talk about today. It seems is that every one of my clients, all of my friends,
Mm-hmm.
all of my children
Mm.
are currently in overwhelm. And let's talk for a while about why that is the case. Then we'll talk about how we can reduce the overwhelm and how we can harness the overwhelm to improve our situation. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm. That sounds fantastic. And so to let everybody know, you are with bijaco. That is the company that you work with. Let me turn off
You
the
did.
big. Yes, I did. Let me do that. There we go. So there's bijaco. And so if you want to find Mark, and as we go along, we'll pop that back up later. And but anyway, so one of the things that I like to think about overwhelm is I interviewed this one person a long time ago, and what she said, which really resonated with me, is how to eat an elephant, right? How to eat an elephant.
I don't think anybody watching the show has ever considered eating an elephant.
No, but if you
My response would be with lots of wasabi.
yeah, well, wasabi would help, but imagine the heartburn with that, man. I mean, eating an entire elephant with wasabi, that would be a lot.
Yeah,
But it's one bite at a time.
that's it.
And and then the other thing I think that's important to think about here, we are in the second day of October, which is the second day of the fourth quarter, which is oh my God, I've got 3 months left to hit all my marks, my goals, my dreams, everything I thought back when, 2021 started. And back then, of course, we were in the middle of this big disruption, which is one of your favorite topics, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I can easily see how right now everybody is just scrambling, going, OMG, right?
That's right. That's it. Might even throw a few other letters in there.
Yeah, WTF and. But I'm actually in full GSD mode, which is
Yeah,
get
that's
stuff
right.
done. I'm using stuff as I don't normally say stuff, but the other word begins with S, and you can fill in the blank.
Uh-huh. Well,
So,
that's a good plan. It's time to get stuff done.
right.
And actually, part of getting out of overwhelm is to get stuff done. Most people get overwhelmed because they're not getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one of the things I really like this way that you started this off. We're in the last quarter. Now, are we going to hit our numbers? Are we going to hit our targets? The answer is maybe.
Right.
Some of you will, some of you won't. But the reality is when we do our planning, we don't take into account the things that are going on right now, such as supply chain disruptions
Right.
and inflation. I'm seeing prices tick up every time I step back into the store. It's like, wait a minute, that was $1 cheaper last week.
Right.
And
Bacon is through the roof right now, man. All my friends are sending
absolutely.
me stuff. It's like, have you seen the price of bacon? It's like, yeah, you
Yep,
know.
that's absolutely true. Everything is getting more expensive,
Hmm.
and you can't get parts.
Right.
For example, a couple of weeks ago, I sold my RAV4. I'm changing gears
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
my nomadic nomadic lifestyle. I've been living out of Airbnbs in a RAV4, and I've actually decided to go full time into a travel trailer. So I bought a Tundra truck to haul around a little travel trailer. So now have my studio apartment on wheels, where my
Hmm.
truck can go, my studio apartment can go. And so I sold my RAV4 for the same price I paid for it 18 months ago,
Wow.
and 45,000 miles later because of the shortage of chips. And the RAV4 is a very popular car because it's extremely efficient. And so, we're seeing that kind of impact, and those kind of impacts you didn't predict when you were creating your projections at the beginning of the year. So first of all, give yourself some slack, cut yourself some slack,
Right.
because you are in a situation you did not predict. And so if you don't hit your numbers, be glad, because there are people that don't even have a business to operate at the end of the year.
Hmm.
So we have to readjust our expectations. And if that gets you out of overwhelmed, then that was worth tuning in for the show.
Right. Well, and I think part of it too is, we had these big plans. It's so hard to predict 12 months out. And I always say, always when you're planning, look at the year, look at the quarters, and then look
Mhm.
at the month.
Yep.
It's like, what does each month bring you? What are the trends? I've been in business for 20 years. I can sense the trends. And you know what? This year has been a trend busting year,
It
where it's like
has.
normally, September is just off the chains. And
Yeah.
August is dull as could be because everybody's on vacation, and September everybody's coming back, and it's usually this dip and this rise. September and August were 100% inverted from what it used to be. I mean, August was off the chains and September was dead,
Yeah.
and that's okay. So then you say, all right, we have to look at, why is that happening? Like you said, supply chain, people weren't going on so many vacations, whatever it is. I mean, once you sit down and look at it and you start to see, that's why,
Mhm.
then that overwhelm tends to go away a little bit. Would you agree?
It can't, absolutely, because part of overwhelmment is we have we're missing expectations across the board.
Hmm.
That's a part of what causes overwhelmment. And overwhelmment comes when the complexity of what we're trying to manage exceeds our capacity to manage that complexity mentally.
Hmm.
And a lot of things that cause that mental overwhelm is, I'm not hitting my numbers. So there's a little self-deprecation going on there. So we got to get ourselves out of the way.
Hmm.
I am doing the best that I can with the resources that I have and the situation that I'm in. You've got to start in that area of your own personal mental attitude. Remember, leadership 101 is first solve for mindset.
Right.
What is your mindset as you're approaching this? Are you focusing on the things you can control? Or are you focusing on the things you can't control? And there's two forms of insanity: worrying about the things you can't control and worrying about the things you can.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. It's not just doing the same thing over and expecting different results.
Well, that's right. That's yeah. Well, that's Einstein's. That's what he said.
Right.
Yet I think the other one is also. They're both appropriate. They're absolutely both appropriate. So, first of all, solve for your mindset. Where are you on Maslow's hierarchy of need? If you're on the bottom two levels, worried about your body,
Hmm.
if you're worried about your financial, your personal security, you've got to work on that first. Forget everything else, because we can't even focus on multiple items, which is required if you're going to handle overwhelm, until you have those elements settled. You have to have food, water, shelter. You have to have physical protection. All of those things have to be in play first. And unfortunately, most of the things that's going on are challenging those, with inflation, with the pandemic, with supply chain issues, with labor shortages. All of those things drive people down Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the lower levels, where you can only look and think about one or two things at a time. And so naturally, you will be in overwhelm if you're in that situation. So focus on that first without any apologies. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely have to do that.
No, and I think that you bring up some really good points about, just basically whittling it down to, look at what it made me think of is the 4 quadrants. It's urgent, important, not urgent, important, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the Eisenhower matrix.
Right, exactly. Is that what it's called? Thank you.
Eisenhower's the guy that brought it to play. Stephen Covey is the one that made it popular.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's one of these things about folklore is, you never know who started what, right?
It's good to give people credit.
Yeah, it is. But it's hard to know who to give credit to because so much of this stuff is regurgitated and put into different factions or different, ideas and those kind of things.
Well, there's a number of motivational speakers that steal broadly and call it their own, and
right.
so they don't get any respect from me. I want you to invent something new and present it to me. Carry on, Brian.
Yes, I will. I will carry on. I will do that. So let me play you something that I want to. I'm going to play this video just real quick, and it's short. It's something that I created, and I used it last week. We were talking about content creation, reusing content.
Great. But if it's over a minute, I'll go make myself another cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's barely a minute, but
right.
Yeah. But if you want to go make yourself another cup of coffee, I'll sit here and talk about it for.
No. Carry on. Watch the video. I'll make a cup of coffee while we're watching the video.
We can do that. That's easy. All right. So here it goes. You ready? Here.
I'm ready.
Have you ever watched a kid's soccer game? Wherever the ball goes, all the kids follow. It can feel like that in business when we're chasing the bouncing ball of trying to get our messages out to the right audience. So that, my friend, is I think that's one of the pieces is overwhelm comes from trying to do what other people that are doing that, that you see success or you think you perceive success because of, other people seem like they're in front of everybody and they're getting all this attention, they're making all this money. And yet it's not exactly what it seems, right?
You can't trust anything at face value. And that's absolutely true, especially with a lot of experts. You see them in front of fancy cars and fancy houses. They're not theirs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But the whole concept is that what I find people doing when they get overwhelmed is they saying, oh, I need to try this. It's like, I've got to overcome this obstacle. And they go down a path and they keep following that ball. It's like the latest, greatest ball. One of the things in the marketing world is creating video. It's like, create video. You got to create more video. You got to get it up there. The thing that most people don't understand about creating videos, we're living in a society of zombies right now.
Right.
Everybody, webinars, nobody's attending them.
Nope.
Networking online, people are showing up and then they're turning their camera off and they're going to making a cup of coffee. That kind of stuff. So
checking their email.
Exactly. Yeah, they're doing all kinds of different things. So let's talk about how do we identify what is overwhelming us, and then how do we start to kind of dink away at that?
All right. So just to recap what we've done so far, overwhelmment is caused because of cognitive overload. Your complexity is way, way, way too high, and if you don't do anything about it, you're going to shed things just naturally. You'll get sick. You'll forget. Things are just going to absolutely drop by the wayside. So what we want to do is not make that happen unintentionally. We want to be intentional about what we shed. And we have to shed something. We have to get rid of some things if we're going to reduce overwhelm. So the first thing we have to do is list all of the issues that are demanding your attention. Write them down. Don't ignore or skip anything. And that includes, I haven't gone see the doctor for a year and a half. Okay, great. We'll put it on your list. I don't know what to get my spouse for their birthday present. Okay, write it down, put it on your list. It doesn't really make any difference because anything that pops into your brain is going to consume cognitive capacity,
Right.
and you only have a certain amount of cognitive capacity available. And here's the deal. While a set of issues viewed as a whole triggers overwhelm, individually you can deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what we have to do is essentially get that list out of our brain so we quit doing the hamster wheel spinning over and over and over and over again about all these things that we need to be doing, but we're not doing them because we're so overwhelmed that we can't get to all these things. That has to stop by putting them down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this comes from an old engineering principle. I'm sitting here about 15 miles away from where I graduated from school with my degree in engineering. Oh my gosh, 40 years ago. And
Wow.
I know.
That's
Time
a long
flies.
time, dude. It's a long time.
It's a long time ago. Yeah, yeah. Not a single bar that I went to as a kid is open anymore. They're all closed.
That doesn't bode well for the bars you're visiting now.
Yeah. I guess when I graduated, they went out of business. All right. So
okay, back on track.
That's right. An engineering strategy that I was taught that has served me extremely well is when you're in overwhelm, write down what you know.
Right.
Start by writing down the things that you know, and then all of a sudden you'll see the gaps that you have, and you can figure out what's the difference. And so that's really what we're applying here is this concept. And you have to write it down. If you don't, your brain doesn't release it. So
Right.
the second step is to perform triage.
Well, I want to interrupt that one point, and that
All
is
right.
this is one of my favorite things in the entire world.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Are we showing off one of these?
Yes, we are.
Whoa, look at that, twinsies. Yeah, I love my Remarkable.
I love it because it actually lets me just do exactly that. It lets me take the things out of my head, put it down, and I've gotten into the habit of doing that every single night.
Yep. Morning and evening.
Yep.
In fact, what I just showed you is some of the points I wanted to make on today's show.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this thing. It's like you can get it out of your head, you can put it in here, and then you can scratch them off and erase them, and then keep a list of that thing. So, anyways, look at you all jiggly with it.
Hey. Well, it really truly is it's the current plan, and there's something about handwriting versus typing that changes how our brains work. Our brains, because we're taught to handwrite versus to type when we're young,
right?
There's a kinesthetic connection to our bodies that writing works. And the thing that I really love about the Remarkable is it's a tablet that actually feels like pencil on paper.
Right.
So for those of you that are saying, I've used a stylus on an iPad, it's not the same.
No. It's not the same, and it's the coolest thing about it too is you can have it on your computer if you want to. But there is something to me. I've always been one of those kind of people that always had notepads on my desk, and I used to have like tons and tons and tons of paper all over the place.
Yeah, legal pads everywhere.
And now this thing is always in front of me. So all I got to do is open it up, hit the on button, and I can start working on it just like I used to. So it gives me, that's the beauty of having something like that. So writing it down is not only is therapeutic, kinesthetic, it's all of the above. It's a lot of icks.
It is a lot of icks.
It takes the ick factor out of overwhelm. That's the way I look at it.
That's it. It's all the icks that you need. Yeah, I'm with you, pal. This is definitely a game changer. Yeah, it is expensive. Well, relatively speaking, it's cheap.
Well, yeah.
But, it's $800 to get the package with the eraser, blah 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 blah.
Right.
But the thing is you can recover that in a week or so of just writing down some of the best ideas and turning them into $1 million systems. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
100% agree. That's exactly true. Because if you capture stuff and you're writing it down and you have it, you could easily make that money back. I always look at something. Yeah. What's the expense of not having something?
That's exactly right. The leverage. I like this expensive, not in the leverage of, yes, those are great decision-making tools.
Yeah. So go
on.
All
right. Now that we have that stuff written down, and yes, I do indeed. That's how I can clear stuff out of my mind when I'm on that hamster wheel. Write it down, and then all of a sudden things start to reflow. So the second thing is we have to perform triage. What is going to get our attention and resources? Because it's the highest value action. And you're going to have to make some difficult choices. You're not going to be able to do everything on the list. That's why you're in overwhelm.
Right.
So something's not going to make it, and you can make the choice, or the choice will be made for you because you don't have the capacity to do everything. And it's a whole lot better if you go look at the list and say, I'm not going to get to that till 2022. That one I don't think I'm going to get to in this lifetime.
Yeah. Very true.
And that's really, it's an important thing to clear things off the list. There's a lot of things that I had on my list a decade ago that I've said, that's not really interesting or important to me anymore. I have other things I would much rather do than that particular accomplishment. So it's important for you to realize you get to change your mind. That's one of the number one things I learned in my second marriage, was the fact I get to change my mind. Typically guys like us, we like to keep our word, because that's what we have. Our integrity is pretty much all we got.
Right.
And so we tend to keep our word on things that we no longer really are committed to, or anybody else is committed to for that matter. So it's okay. You get to change your mind.
Yeah.
And as long as you let people know, it's not a problem. The problem is when they are counting on what you said you're going to do and you don't deliver. That's when we get into the integrity issue. In fact, I've been accused, Mark, you're not out of integrity. No, I actually changed my mind. And I'm sorry, I didn't tell you that. Oh,
right.
Oh, okay. All right, now we're back into the flow. But that's what the triage is about. But if you change your mind, it's okay. Just let people know. We've had to delay this. This is no longer a priority. In fact, what a wonderful world to say, this is not a priority.
Right.
So.
Well, let's get into the triage. I mean, some of the things, triage can happen a lot of different ways. You basically have to go through that list and say, A, what's important, and B, it's like, I always like the simplicity of ABC, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. A is, I got to get this done. This has an effect on my life, on my business, on everything that I'm doing. B is, this is something I need to work on. C is, let it go.
Yep.
And the A's you're going to have to deal with. The B's, you can either deal with them yourself, or you can find somebody else to help you.
Right on.
Right.
Right.
And then C is, this no longer has, even though it a long time ago, like if I stuck with what I was doing 5 years ago, I'd still be peddling courses, and I'm no longer peddling courses because it's no longer important to me in my business. Even though I still have them, if somebody bought them, I wouldn't turn them down, but I'm certainly not going to invest time in it because it's no longer the direction I feel like this business or my life should go. Right.
Well, you're at that phase of your business where people don't want to learn what you know.
Right.
What they want is for you to do what you know for them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's get it done for them.
Yeah. Help me get it done. What people need is do power.
Right.
Versus no power. And if the old word is knowledge is power. No, actually getting stuff done is power.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the biggest thing I learned by doing the courses is over the course of time, you'd have 100 people in a room, 20% of the people would buy them. 20% of those people would open it up, and 20% of those people would actually do what you told them.
So you're down to 4% of your room. 4 people out of 100 would actually do anything.
Yeah, and the number of people who would get some kind of outcome from it is maybe 50%. So you're going through all this energy, and 2 people are doing things. If you do it for them, the accountability is built in. It's like you are the accountability, and that's the big difference.
Well, and I think it's really important to push this into the concept of overwhelm, which is that if you have something on your list that you don't know how to do, that substantially magnifies your overwhelm. I don't know how to do this is a big factor in overwhelm. I need to do this. I don't know how to do this. So that gets, you really did a really good job with A, B, and C about how to do the triage. And let's dig into that. Well, I actually want to bump up a level. Triage comes from VOR.
Right.
And the concept is very simple: who lives and who dies based on their capacity to live.
Right.
How close are they to dying? How close are they to surviving? This one's not going to make what this one is, so let's put our energy on the one that is.
Right. Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do is dump the issues that of least impact. You can pick them up later. And if you're worrying about being judged as not keeping your word, remember, with changing circumstances, you get to change your mind. And just to kind of sum that up in a meme, sometimes you got to shoot a sick dog.
Yeah, which is sad but true.
You and I both put a dog to sleep this year, and it's very sad, but for them to stay alive another day would not have been a good thing for any one of us.
Right. Not them, not you, nothing. Right.
That's it. Well, so those are tough decisions, and you have to make some tough decisions in your life. Okay, so the next one is exactly what you said, which is the B, which is delegate what you don't have to handle personally.
Right.
And if you have issues with that, probably the thing to do is go back to that fantastic show you and I did on delegating without losing control. We did that on the Bacon podcast about a year ago.
Yeah, just go to the Bacon podcast. I could look it up while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, just you have to figure out how to delegate. And on that particular show, Brian and I stepped through step by step, how do you delegate without losing control? And you'll hear some of the similar principles that you're hearing on today's show about figuring out who's best to do that, and then how to hand that off and making sure that you get the outcome that you are anticipating and require.
Hey, Mark.
And yes.
Yeah, I had a little glitch in my system. I want you to keep going for a couple of minutes, so I'll be right back. But keep going through your process, and I'll be here.
I'll be all right. I'll just keep on going. Hey,
thank you, sir.
Tag team, right?
Yes, go for it.
All right, all right. So delegate what you don't want to handle personally. Remember, when it comes to cognitive capacity, you can only make so many decisions in a day. So consider what you're going to choose to do wisely. And that's one of the reasons why delegation is an important component. So fundamentally, you delegate everything that somebody else can do at a lower cost than you can do it for yourself. And what that cost really takes into account is if you put your energy somewhere else, how much more could you make? And so if you're making, a good way of identifying that is if your business is doing $1 million a year and you are open 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, essentially you're responsible for almost $500 an hour of work. $480 is the specific number if you divide 80 hours, which is 8 times 5 times 52, by $1 million, it ends up being $420 an hour, or $480 an hour. So you're responsible for almost $500 an hour in output. And so if you're doing a $15 an hour task, that's not a good idea. That's not a usage of your time that's intelligent. And maybe one of the reasons why you're in overwhelm is because you're focused on, oh, I can take care of this in 15 minutes. Yeah, what you just did is you just chewed up about 7 or 8% of your cognitive capacity for that day in that trade-off. Not a smart thing to do. Now, in the past, that probably made sense when you had more time than money, but right now, your time is limited because of all the things that you have to do. The next step is to delay. And that's actually sort of a subset of the C. We're going to let it go. Maybe we just delay it. So delay the unimportant. What deadlines can you renegotiate? Most times when we're under a lot of overwhelm, it's because we've made commitments to other people, or they're placing demands on us. We need to have this piece of paperwork by this time. Could come from a client, could come from the government, it could, whatever it happens to be. Somebody has placed a deadline on you, and there's some sort of potential impact if that deadline isn't met. So your job is to figure out what deadline you can renegotiate. And don't assume that you can't, because you can. Most deadlines can be renegotiated. Exceptions are granted, but you must ask for them. Now, this is an important leadership strategy. A lot of times, we get back into that old trap of do what you say what you do. Well, sometimes certain situations change, and you just got to change what your expectations are. But you also have to manage the expectations of those others that are anticipating your delivery on that deadline. So, what can you delay? Who do you need to reset to make that happen? What exception do you need to negotiate? And you can do this with vendors, with vendor payments. You can do this with, even the government accepts delays of deadlines. So we do that with taxes all the time, right? You file and defer, but there it is. All right, the next one is get going. What should be left on your list after you've dumped what you're not going to do anymore, delegated what you can, and then delayed what's possible, you're going to have a much shorter list that's going to get you out of overwhelm. You're going to have a whole lot fewer things to be concerned about at this point. So, what's the most valuable initiative? And the idea here is to pick the initiative that's going to generate the most resources that will let you get back to those other items that you triaged. So which one's going to generate more time for you? Which one is going to generate more cognitive capacity for you? Which one's going to generate more resources for you? Could be money. Whatever it happens to be, choose the task that's going to bring the most resources into your control. And by doing that, everything is going to substantially improve. And you're going to feel so much better after going through this exercise. Now, what I find is that for most people, this exercise is really 10 minutes max. Doesn't take much more than that to get the job done. So when you get into overwhelm, write it all down. What is it that's on your list that's driving you crazy? And then step through the triage. What's going to live? What needs to get go? Dump the ideas or dump the demands that no longer are going to serve you the way you want to be served. Delegate those demands to the people that indeed can do them for you, free up your cognitive capacity. Delay whatever you possibly can by renegotiating deadlines, and then get going. Get going. Just do it. And by doing that, you can be back into business very, very quickly. So, overwhelmment is a natural situation, and realize that right now, because of the extraordinary situations that are going on in the world, that you are not alone in overwhelm. Everybody I know is in some form of massive change in their life. Whether it's my middle daughter being pregnant with her first child, or my mama moving from living on her own to skilled care, all of those things are going on in everybody's life. So realize that you're in this boat, everybody's in this boat. And so overwhelm is just something we have to deal with, and I think that we've been able to step through and offer some ways of doing that. Now, the cool thing, Brian, is that you've got some ways of helping people out of overwhelm when it comes to increasing their business. Let's just chat about that for a moment.
Yeah, one of the one of the things that I've learned over time is one of the hardest things is to try to get your messages out in a way that's going to attract attention, get people to pay attention. And I think one of the things that we do in our businesses is, at least I've learned over the years, is we create content, we do it, and then we put it aside. And we create content, we do it, and we put it aside. And one of the things that I think that's missing is, how do we grab, there's usually, okay, so this gets down to, how do you write a book, right? And that's one of the things that I look at.
With a lot of wasabi.
Right, exactly, yes. A lot of heartburn. But, if you sit down, most people, I look at the way the content works with writing a book, and this is overwhelm. How many people out there do you think has said, someday I want to write a book, right?
Well, most people with a modicum of insight that they've had that they feel like they want to share. So most of the people I know want to write a book.
Right. And so when you sit down and you look at it, it's like, well, I don't know how to write a book. It seems like a process. I've got to learn all these different things. So one of the ways that you can easily write a book is you can hire a ghostwriter, right? I mean, but it's expensive. And I'm going to tell everybody a little secret out here. You're never going to make a lot of money on a book unless you are somebody who is, you're out there speaking and you can sell them and you can get on the New York Times bestseller list. Unless you're a rock star, you're never going to make money. So,
that's right. You do not make money selling a book.
Right.
Not with nonfiction. You can make money selling fiction, but you can't, there is just not a lot of money to be made selling nonfiction.
Right. So the first thing about that is, when you understand writing a book is not about selling books. It's about getting the word out that hopefully leads towards something else. Go ahead.
It's not. It's about establishing authority on a topic.
Right.
That's why I write books, is to establish authority on a topic. Once that's established, then I can get the word out, and I've got proof that I'm a person to pay attention to.
Right.
I've written this book. These are the endorsements that I've had from people that you respect. And so therefore, if you want to have somebody on your team that can deliver this, Mark's the guy because of that establishment of authority. Then we get the word out.
Right. So now what's happened is that you have taken pieces of overwhelm about writing a book immediately off the table, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how am I going to sell enough books to be able to pay for this thing? How am I going to get enough people to buy it? All these other things. Once you start to realize that that book becomes an authority generating tool,
That's it.
and the book itself, and let's get down to beeswax too. How many people buy a book and never open it up?
All of them.
Right. Right. So what's the biggest problem? You put the book out there and you think the book's going to get you the authority, and it won't. And the reason it won't get you the authority because most people will never read it, right?
Yeah. The advantage, though, is that if you can get that book on their bookshelf, it's a 1-inch wide continuous.
Right.
I've got your book on the bookshelf. On my bookshelf is something that creates authority when I have a conversation with somebody.
Right. And that's very, very true. And then the other thing too is if you have it on their bookshelf, my mother taught me, because my mother was, I was born and raised so New York Catholic. My mother was a travel agent for guild trips. So, you could go in and basically say, oh, my book's on your shelf. What do you think of the second chapter? Right.
I never ask anybody if they've read the book. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, how can I help you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so let's go to the other parts of writing a book. Writing a book, number one, you probably have all the content somewhere. You might have it on your Remarkable pad. You might have it in blogs. You might have it in webinars. You might have all these different things that you've never been able to grab these things and organize it and put it into a sequence that would create a book, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was one of the things that I learned a long time ago is like, okay, let me look at the pre-existing content that I have and let me pull some pieces in what makes sense and how do I take these Post-it notes and put them in order so that it has some flow to it. If you sit and look at what you already have, you probably have enough content to be able to do this. Now you can get the outline done. Now the next thing is, okay, I suck at writing. I do. Personally, I do. So one of the things I found a way to overcome the overwhelm of having to write a book was to basically talk it in my microphone.
That's it. That's right. And if you can speak for 6 hours, you've got a book.
Yeah.
And if you can speak for 90 minutes, you have an executive read book.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't need to have a 300-page book, which most of my books are. You could get away with, a 100-page book. A lot of executives write a 100-page book because it basically gets the gist down.
Yeah. We call them airplane reads.
Right. Exactly. So then, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's the whole idea is that you can read the book on an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On an airplane ride. That's it. That's the idea. And executive books are very different. And for most of the folks listening, you're reaching out to a business leader who needs to understand what you can do, and more importantly, needs to understand the project that you're suggesting to them. Remember, an executive will never agree to a project they don't know how to manage.
Right.
So an executive read is usually about the education level of how to manage what you're going to sell them. Not any other. That really is the key reason for it.
Right.
So it has to be quick. It's got to be a checklist. It's got to be questions to ask people. It's got to be questions to ask themselves, and also ways to determine success.
Wait a minute. Say that again. I want to write that down. Go ahead. So it's got to be
questions to ask themselves.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm writing this down in my notepad here. So
on your Remarkable.
Right. Questions to ask themselves. Okay.
That's right. What are questions that you have to ask yourself?
Okay.
Then questions to ask your team.
Okay.
And they're going to be different.
Right.
And then how will you measure success?
Okay. Okay.
And
so there you go. And there's your formula.
So that is the formula. And in the end of every chapter that I've written, of every executive read I have written, has chapter summary, questions to ask yourself, questions to ask your team, and how to measure success.
Right.
That's it. That's part of the formula. So you can do that. That's the point, right? You can do that.
Now you've created, so you've given everybody the formula. I've told them how to write the book. We've already told them where they got the content and put all this stuff together, right?
That's it.
So once you start looking at that from those bit parts and you start breaking that down, you've now put wasabi in all the parts of that elephant.
That's it.
Right?
And by the way, that's the last thing that you write.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So now, when you sit down, you look at this big monster and this overwhelm, it's something that really is easy to do. The first thing you've got to do is figure out, okay, what content do I already have?
Well,
Number two.
actually, there's another first step, Brian. I'm
Okay, go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry here that I keep interrupting
No,
your
and this is
your
great.
process.
This is no. I'm flushing this out as we go. I'm trying to use your overwhelm as an example.
That's exactly right. Well, the first thing we have to do is decide who is our audience.
Right.
Who do I want to have read this book?
Right.
Who is this book for? Because if you write a book that isn't for anybody in specific, it doesn't connect with them.
Right.
So the title has to connect. And ideally, the title, when you say it to somebody you want to do business with, they'll say, ooh, really?
Yeah.
How can I get a copy of that? That, if you don't get that response, the title is not working for you.
Right. Yeah.
So once you understand who your audience is, the second question you have to ask is, what do you want them to do if they have read the book?
Right. Exactly.
What's the objective? Then we go to where you are, which is, what is the content that I have available that supports those two objectives?
No, and that is such a great point, and I did overlook that step. You got to first.
It's all good, my friend. The two of us are better than the one of us.
Well, that's the whole point. That's why we go back and forth on this stuff.
Right.
But, yeah. So one of the things that I'm saying is that you know, if you want to write a book, you may not want to write a book. We've just made it so much simpler for you, right? We've taken it down to a handful of steps, and once you understand the steps, you can do it yourself. Even at that point, you could hire a ghostwriter. You could basically dictate you can give somebody else all this stuff and make it happen. Okay. So one of the things that I've learned how to do through podcasting and doing these shows is interviewing people, right?
Yes.
So I've created these three different ways of looking at taking that content. So what I do is I help people organize that content and pull it together and basically create an ebook. And what an ebook is a teaser to whatever it is that you're trying to do. It's basically getting the basic concepts out there. So it's taking your executive book and shrinking it down even further and putting it in digital form.
Well, see, the brilliant part about that is a market test.
Right.
Because if nobody wants your ebook, nobody's going to want your book.
Right. Exactly.
And so you can save yourself a hell of a lot of time if you release a ebook prior to your full book.
Yep, exactly. And the other thing too is that becomes the litmus test of am I talking to my audience the way that is engaging them, right?
Right on.
So then what I do with that is I basically interview people, I take their current content, figure out what it is, help them figure out the top 3 things that they want to get across, put an intro and outro on it, and then we create an ebook, a well-designed, nice-looking ebook. And then on top of
5 chapters.
Right, 5 chapters, right.
That's it.
And so 5 chapters, and then we create 3 emails that basically says in chapter 1 it does this, in chapter 2 it does this, and chapter 3 it does that. It's teasers that you can put in the emails. Those emails lead to blog posts or an article somewhere. You can put it up as an article on LinkedIn. It doesn't even have to be a blog post if you don't have a blog. You just put it up on LinkedIn, you put a link to it and say read more here. And then in that LinkedIn article, you can go in and say download my ebook. And now you've created this ecosystem around content that you already had that's super simple to do.
That's right. And all of that will take maybe 20 hours of your time.
Right, exactly.
Maybe. Which means 2 weeks, if you put aside 2 hours in the morning for 2 weeks, you'll have it.
Right, exactly. Well, I simplify that whole thing. I break it down into one neat package and get it done for you in under a month. In from start to finish. And when I say under a month, when I say under a month, you get interviewed once, you prove what's there, you get all the stuff, and then you get some idea on how to put it up, what to do with it.
Better, even better.
So, and I go through and make sure you do it the right way and give you feedback on it. And once it's done, now you've got this little micro ecosystem that's going to help you get your message out to your right audience and be able to. And also nurture your current audience. That's the biggest thing about it, is talking to the people you already know and getting their feedback. I wrote this ebook. What do you think?
That's right. How valuable is it to you? Now, I want to make sure that we're absolutely clear to our listener, our viewer, that what you're offering is essentially, you could do it yourself in 20 hours.
Right.
Right. Or you can help them get that done.
Yes.
Including clarifying the audience, including clarifying the action steps,
right,
and then making sure that the content is written in their voice to make those two things happen. And if you've never written before, it's very likely that you don't know how to do that.
Right.
But you and your team can. That's really powerful.
Right.
That is extremely valuable.
And so let me do some math here, because I'm, that's the one thing. Math on a Saturday morning is really hard. Okay.
That's okay. I've done it. I've already done it. And if we were talking about
Right.
$1 million business,
Right.
that means that you're responsible for $480 an hour. And so 20 hours of your time ends up being worth, was that $10,000?
Yeah, about $10,000, right? So
Look at that math.
I know, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So $10,000, well, basically you can do it for less than a third of the price.
Look at that. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and the question becomes, if you
no overwhelm.
Yeah, no overwhelm, and it gets done. And the second piece of it too is that, and this is always, we go back to that original thing you said. Am I doing the right thing for the right audience? Who am I speaking to?
Right.
If you do this, can you produce enough revenue to make it pay for itself 3 times over? So in other words,
well, yeah, not if you just write the book and do nothing else.
Right.
That's not the formula. You have to have, writing the book is the easy part. Promoting the book is where the work gets done, and where the revenue comes from.
And where the revenue really comes from is having conversations, having relationships with people, and getting people to actually start talking. It's like, wait a minute, you do this. What does that mean for my business? Can you help me do that? And all of a sudden you create a new revenue stream, find new customers, do those kind of things.
Right on.
So
let's do a quick recap of the RACE formula that you and I talked about recently.
Sure, go ahead.
Because it absolutely ties into this.
Yeah, go ahead.
R stands for relevance.
Right.
The first thing you have to illustrate to prospects is the fact that you are relevant to what they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And so the ebook has to be written with that relevance in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't done it before, it's difficult to do. If you can do it with somebody who has an experience in making sure relevance is in alignment, then it's going to be a whole lot more effective for you. But your book has to be relevant to the results that your target market wants to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you establish that relevance, the next line is authority. A in the RACE is authority.
Right.
Why are you the authority? Why should they choose you to help them accomplish the outcomes they're looking for? That's where the book really comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
As it's establishing that authority. Then the C is commitment to their commitment. So you can establish the fact that you are committed to having them achieve what they are committed to. And that's an important component of the book. We usually do that through things such as case studies, checklists, elements like that. But you have to illustrate that you are committed to helping them get there. And that's the piece that most people miss.
Right.
And that's where when you have a conversation with people, is you establish the fact that you are fully committed to what they're committed to accomplishing.
Right.
And then the E is execute. What's the next step? What's the next logical step?
Right.
And so when you have that conversation with people, you can match that RACE strategy right back to the conversation, so that the book, the work the ebook has done continues in using the same step-by-step process. Is that helpful?
That's absolutely helpful. And that's exactly it, is, the execution. Here's the bottom line, is that having the authority, having the commitment, all those things, but the execution is always the hard part. That's where the overwhelm comes into play. That's what we've been talking about.
Oh, we can just do this ourselves. Well, if you could, you would.
Right.
But you can't, so you haven't.
And the other thing about it too is, can you really do it? Let me give you an example for the ebook. Okay. So I have a team of people. This is what I've been doing for my big customers.
Yeah.
I have one person. I have multiple people, but I'm just saying, one person comes in, sits through the interview with the owner of the company with me, and here's the questions. I can ask them questions and put things in order and say, okay, here are the 3 things. What's important about this? What do your customers want to know about? What's keeping them up at night? All those kind of things. The person who's going to write the stuff is in there, can ask their own questions, and they're already formulating what this looks like. They're formulating in their head what it's going to look like in the ebook, and they're formulating what it's going to look like in a blog post. And if you take it down to email drips or take it down to social posts, they're thinking of it in levels that you don't have expertise for. That's number one.
I think it's really important to reinforce that, Brian.
Yeah.
You and I, as longtime producers,
mm-hmm.
You've produced, hundreds and hundreds of shows. You've produced hundreds and hundreds of books and things for your clients. Same thing with me. I shepherd books for select individuals, and
Right.
certainly done many shows.
Heck, you've done with J. Conrad Levinson. I mean, you're part of the guerrilla marketing team.
An honor to be a part of that experience. Yeah, and
Right.
Jay's taught me so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, what a brilliant soul! I miss him.
Yeah, he's
And
amazing. I'm still friends with Jeannie, his wife, too.
absolutely, Jeannie's a sweetie.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely terrific. Yeah, it was really great to get to know her when Jay was still alive, and
Mm-hmm.
indeed. So, but the point is that as a producer,
Mm-hmm.
we have a vision, and we can listen to things and be slotting them. And a lot of times, my clients will say, "Do you have what you need?" And I say, "Absolutely. My producer mind has identified all the elements are there for us to be
Right.
successful. Relax. I'll talk to you in a week."
And I have a real life example of this too. And this happens. Okay, so we're working on our house right now. We're trying. In 20 years we haven't done anything. And
Oh, sure, you've lived there for 20 years.
right, exactly. We've lived there for 20 years. We haven't painted, we haven't updated, a lot of things. And so, I have a person who's helped me out actually visualize this. Okay. The big difference between me and my wife is when somebody comes in and tells me, okay, we're going to put up cans here, I can already visualize what they look like, what the light's going to look like coming down. I can see the space.
That's right. That's
my
a producer
wife's
mind.
Right. My wife just sees they're going to poke holes in the ceiling. And the funny thing is she couldn't see it. But when she came home, when the lights were put in and I turned the lights on first, she went, "Oh my God, this is beautiful. Why haven't we done this before?" Because she could not see it, but I could.
And that's just the way people's brains are different.
And it's not wrong. It's not
no
wrong.
judgment. No judgment.
Right.
It's
None.
just different skill sets.
Right, exactly. So that's having the producer mindset. So again, you've got somebody who knows how to write for all those different things, looking at all the pieces together as an ecosystem. Then you've got a designer who knows how to take the words and measure and basically put the right images for what messages you're trying to get across, because they can listen to the same thing. They can hear what you say.
Again, that I really want to land that point, because what you're talking about now is called sequence intelligence.
Right.
We have to deliver the information in a specific sequence for them to grasp and follow you from don't know what you're talking to the point where they say that's perfect for me.
Right.
And that sequence intelligence is part of the producer mindset.
Right. Exactly. And then the last piece of that is creating the system to get the message out there about the content. Because it's one thing to create content, but most of us have this. You have something really, really great on your website, but nobody knows it exists. And you hope that Google will find it because you put in the right title that somebody told you SEO would work. It doesn't work that way. You have to put it in front of them and they have to stumble across and go, wait a minute, that's cool, right?
They're not going to stumble across it because there are companies that are way bigger than you are that are doing everything they can to be in the first page, and you just can't compete with that.
Right. And they have a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more attention and much more sophisticated ways of doing things.
I guarantee you their Google ad budget is influencing where they are in the search engine.
Exactly. Yes. So the key thing is when you create this ecosystem with people that know how to put your stuff in front of your audience, it's going to make a huger difference. And, and there's no guarantees. It cannot work 100% of the time because the algorithms in the world is changing. But the thing you could do is you can up the level of the game that you're playing as opposed to what you're doing now, right?
Well, there are very few guarantees in the world other than the fact that the Democrats are going to raise the taxes and you're going to die one day.
Yeah.
That's about the only guarantees that we have.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not meant to be a dig against Democrat. It just happens to be that's what they like to do.
Yeah. But the key thing that, we're trying to get across is can you get your message out in a way that people will pay attention to that converts back to the core of what your business is about?
Great, and I want to tweak that one again, my friend. We're just working on embroidering on each other's tapestry.
I like it.
And it's that will the people that you want to do business with pay attention to this and take action?
Right.
And it's I think we just have to I want to keep pounding home this concept of we have to be completely targeted. It has to be. The more targeted you are, the more effective it will be. Because I can put something in front of somebody and they go meh. Or I can put something in for somebody, they go, where have you been? This is an answer to my prayers. And we have to be Now, if you're a person that has a spiritual practice, you should be the answer to your customers' prayers.
Right.
And if you're not a spiritual person, you have to be what your customers have been dreaming about at night.
Yes. Well, I don't know.
That's your goal.
That can be a little creepy sometimes, but we won't go there.
Come on, making dreams come true is the ultimate business model.
Well, that's Disney, right?
It is 50 years right now. They're celebrating in Orlando.
Yeah, exactly.
That is Disney.
So I want to go down one last thing.
All right.
And it was just kind of down this road. And then I want to do a recap. I mean, we basically can you believe we've been on for 55 minutes?
Time flies when I talk with you, my friend. It always does. It does.
I love it.
It's like, yeah, it's always uplifting. Makes my heart happy.
Yeah, me too. I love having these chats, and I love when people comment on them and engage with us. But there's always so many golden nuggets in here,
Indeed, and you and I are really good at challenging each other to refine the message, which is one of the things I so value about our relationship. People are especially people who know the topic, right? You and I are experts in our field, illustrated.
Right.
We're authorities, and for you and I to bang up against each other and refine each other's content just it's a thrill.
Well, it's iron sharpening iron. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Yeah. So the last thing is I was walking with walking my dog with one of my neighbors who has a dog, and my dog and his dog kind of get along. They're boyfriend and girlfriend. And as we were finishing up the conversation, we were talking about all these different gurus, who sell this woo-woo, love your life, you can achieve kind of stuff, right? And I said, okay, the biggest difference between them and what real success looks like, and you can check me on this one, is they are there to get you to feel good about yourself so they can sell you more stuff.
That's right.
They don't have any vested interest in your success. Their vested interest in your success is if you make more money, you'll spend more with them.
That's right. They're missing the C in race.
Right. Exactly. The commitment. Exactly.
The commitment to your commitment.
Right. Go through race one more time for my audience again.
R is relevance.
Right.
You have to be completely relevant to the outcome that your target audience is looking for.
And you can create relevance out of anything. You can just say, hey, you need to make more money. That's a relevant thing to a lot of people. It's like, if that's what's on their mind, that's what they think about, right?
Or it could be that at the beginning of the show, we're talking about, are you in overwhelm? Yeah. Right. Okay. Listen, we've put some thought into this. We've done some things, and we've got some experience in how to get out of overwhelm. That's a relevant element. Right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It has it has a connection. That's the bottom line. It's relevant.
Has to have.
It's in their top of mind. It's in their purview, right?
And ideally, it's a high priority.
Right, exactly. It's high on that list it's in that A category that we talked about, the ABC, right?
That's absolutely there. Then the A is authority. Why are you somebody they should pay attention to? And for a lot of the folks that you were just speaking to, the gurus in the business, they're only there because they've sold a lot of books, or they've gathered a lot of testimonials from people that were high on their message for a moment.
Right.
And every guru gets really great at getting people high. It's a dopamine kind of situation, potentially oxytocin. It's the reason why TR gets people to massage each other's necks is because they're actually triggering oxytocin in the touching of another human. Right. So this guy uses a lot of brain chemistry tricks to create that.
Exactly. Yes. And he's really good at them and learned them. Yes.
Oh, he's really spectacular at that. It's just unsustainable once you're out of that field.
Right. But now you get to the C, which is the
commitment to their commitment.
Right.
That's the piece that most people are missing. And then the E is execute. Okay, what's the next logical step?
Right. And that's usually, these guys are really good at the R and the A. And then you start getting to the C and it goes way down, and you get to the E and it totally falls apart because most people don't execute what they purchase. I mean, going back to what we talked about.
That's exactly it. The E from their standpoint is give me your money,
right?
And then go off and do it on your own, unless you want to sign up for my $50,000 program, in which case we're going to couple you with a coach who's going to kick your butt around. And for some people, that's what they need. Some people need a coach to have that conversation or to kick their butts around a little bit, but it's going to cost. It's going to cost you.
Right. But the final piece of what we were talking about on that dog walk is I said, here's the biggest thing. And this is the way I've structured the way that I look at business. Business number one is making the client successful.
Yes.
Can you make the client successful? And that is the biggest focus. And I did this with a project manager
Yes.
who I'm hiring. I brought her on. I said, here's my business. Number one, we make the client money. We make them happy. We make them successful. Whatever their goal is, we give that to them. The second most important thing is to make the people that work for you happy, successful, and feeling good about what they're doing. They feel
Yes.
valued and they feel like they're getting something of it. So they produce better results so that the client gets what they want. And then the last piece of it is we reap the reward.
That's right.
And that's essentially what it boils down to. So if you make the client happy, you make the people doing the work for you, then the rewards that you get are bigger. And I think that's really the key. And then going through that race is really super important.
Indeed. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And you're absolutely spot on. People frequently ask me, Mark, how can I beat my competition? And my response is, you're asking the wrong question.
Right.
The question is, how can you help your customers, your clients, beat the competition?
Exactly.
That will create zero competition.
Exactly. And that's, if you make your customers successful, they will not go anywhere else unless they
can't.
They can't find anybody unless they can find somebody to make them more successful. And are they willing to take that chance again? That's the key question.
Yeah, I've only had one example where that failed, and that was when there was a massive upheaval and they fired all of their external consultants. I just happened to be part of that reduction in consultant force. But it happens. It happens.
Well, it's wrap time, my friend. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you and your stuff.
Always the best way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn. And so just go to marksonlinkedin.com, MARKS on LinkedIn.com. That'll take you directly to my LinkedIn profile. There's a lot of Mark Smiths out there. There's only one Mark S.A. Smith, but still, it makes it a whole lot easier. Say, hey, I saw you on Bacon and Coffee. I will give you 20 minutes of a conversation. Absolutely no charge whatsoever, just to kick around what you got on your mind.
Well, Mark, this was, as usual, just kick-ass stuff. By the way, the episode that you're on was number 515. So if people want to find out how to delegate, that's it. And with that being said, we will see you again in November, my friend. You're always the first guy of the month, and you always bring the bacon. So with that being said, it's time for our porcelain and pork closeout. Mark, again, thank you so much for your time. Great stuff, my friend.
Thank you.
All right,
Happy
talk
trails.
soon.